Imagine standing alone in the middle of a vast, icy landscape, where fire and ice meet, where the forces of nature are raw and untamed. Now imagine that this unforgiving wilderness becomes your greatest teacher, shaping not only your destiny, but also your philosophy of life and business. This is the story of Gunnar Andri Thorisson, an Icelandic Viking of modern times, whose journey from poverty to becoming one of Iceland's most renowned sales trainers is filled with lessons of courage, resilience, and transformation. Welcome to Message from the Middle of Nowhere, a Viking philosophy for conquering life's greatest challenges. Chapter 1. When the eruption starts, location is everything. The story of Gunnar Andri begins in Reykjavik, but is rooted in the volcanic Westman Islands of Iceland, a place where the Earth's power can both destroy and create. When he was just 6 years old, Gunnar witnessed how nature's fury could reshape lives overnight. A massive volcanic eruption erupted in Jaime, destroying homes and forcing thousands to flee. For many, it was a moment of fear and loss. For young Gunnar, it became the spark that ignited his life's purpose. While his relatives were escaping the molten lava with nothing but the clothes on their backs, Gunnar found himself downtown, shouting headlines to passing pedestrians. Breaking news: volcanic eruption in Westman Islands. It wasn't just about selling newspapers. It was his first taste of entrepreneurship. He learned something powerful that day: that work, courage, and persistence are the foundations of every great success. Even as a child, Gunnar's instincts were remarkable. He collected empty wallets and piggy banks, convinced that one day they would be filled. To him, abundance began with belief. But he also discovered an essential truth missing from the modern self-help philosophy of attraction. Belief alone isn't enough. You must work for what you want. One day, he faced a defining moment. His favorite sales corner outside the National Bank was ruled by an older paper vendor, Ollie, known to everyone as the newspaper king. Other boys warned Gunnar to stay away, but he was determined. So he approached Ollie's territory, only to be met with threats and shouting. That corner was his dream spot, but could he face the fear of confrontation and still stand his ground? Gunnar's decision changed everything. He refused to give up and soon found an ally, a towering man collecting money for the Salvation Army, whom Gunnar affectionately called the Troll. With the Troll by his side, the gnome-like Ollie suddenly lost his power. Together, they sold newspapers, each benefiting from the other's presence. The lesson was unforgettable. If a giant blocks your path, find a bigger one to stand beside you. That 6-year-old boy discovered timeless truths, that courage beats comfort, that location and timing matter, and that success comes to those who act when others hesitate. The eruption that destroyed his family's home became the fire that fueled his destiny. Chapter 2. A Viking Salesman in the Country of Elves. Gunnar's Viking spirit came from his family, his father from the storm-beaten Westman Islands, and his mother from Skagafrur, a northern valley of singers, farmers, and dreamers. His summers spent in Skagafrur were transformative. He worked hard on farms, rode horses through icy streams, and absorbed life lessons from his grandmother, a wise woman born in a turf house. She taught him that you aren't a true rider until you've fallen off your horse and climbed back on. It was her way of saying, you can't call yourself strong until you've faced failure and risen again. Gunnar carried that wisdom for life. His grandmother was a natural leader, a woman of discipline, resilience, and humor. She told him stories of Viking courage and Icelandic folklore, blending myth with morality. To her, education and reading were sacred. Keep your mind sharp, she would say. You must train your brain like a muscle. Under her guidance, Gunnar devoured books, from ancient Icelandic folktales to modern self-help titles like The Power of Positive Thinking. But his childhood was far from easy. His parents divorced, and his mother struggled with illness. When she passed away, Gunnar was only 11. That night, she appeared to him in a dream, saying goodbye before he even knew she had died. It was a moment that convinced him there are forces in the world greater than what we can see, a spiritual thread connecting us all. After her death, he went to live with his grandparents, where love and structure healed him. His grandmother's advice became his guiding light. Eat well, read often, speak kindly, and give your best to whatever task you do. One afternoon, while working at a grocery store, Gunnar watched a salesman sell toilet paper by showing its extra weight and value instead of lowering the price. That single moment reshaped his understanding of sales forever. Salesmanship, he realized, isn't about price. It's about demonstrating value. From that spark came a dream, to one day create a school where people could learn the art of communication and persuasion. It was the seed that would later grow into his SGA Sales School, the first of its kind in Iceland. Chapter 3. From Motivated Fool to Master Salesman. After losing his mother, Gunnar found comfort in hard work. Every summer he labored on his uncle's farm, herding sheep, harvesting hay, and building the stamina that would later fuel his entrepreneurial success. These long, endless days under Iceland's midnight sun taught him one thing: discipline builds character. Around the fire, elders told stories of trolls, elves, and mythical beasts like Gryla, the child-eating monster who punished the disobedient. Gunnar came to see Gryla not as a creature from folklore, but as a symbol of fear and conformity. "We all have our own Gryla," he'd later say. "It's the voice inside that tells you to stop dreaming." His message was clear: Gryla lives only if you feed her. At 14, Gunnar bought his first motorbike with money he earned himself. It was a symbol of independence, proof that he could create his own destiny. But not every venture went smoothly. At 17, he landed his first professional sales job, representing a bakery. Despite enthusiasm and positivity, he didn't sell a single item. That's when he realized that motivation without direction is just noise. He called it being a motivated fool. So he created his first mental framework for success, a personal GPS that guided him through life's confusion. Attitude: believe you can win. Knowledge: learn your craft relentlessly. Action: move forward, even through fear. Determined to improve, he joined a Dale Carnegie seminar, paying a fortune for a seat. That course became a turning point. Carnegie's principle, "quality resonates longer than price," became Gunnar's mantra. He learned that greatness requires investment, and the best investment is always in yourself. Soon, he got another chance, selling books door to door across Iceland. It was grueling work, facing rejection after rejection. But Gunnar transformed each no into fuel. He realized that if he sold what he loved, his enthusiasm would be contagious. When he spoke passionately about the Icelandic sagas, his sales soared. His authenticity was his greatest tool. Over time, Gunnar became one of Iceland's top book salesmen. He learned to treat rejection as redirection, understanding that every no brought him closer to the next yes. And when he later traveled to Japan, a chance meeting with strangers who knew mutual friends reminded him that fortune always favors the bold. Chapter 4. Stuck between two avalanches. A mobile phone? Are you crazy? Years later, Gunnar faced one of his most harrowing experiences. Traveling across the snow-laden fjords with his friends, they decided to bring along a mobile phone, a rare and expensive novelty in 1980s Iceland. People laughed, calling it foolish. Yet, that very phone would soon save their lives. During their journey, a violent avalanche struck the mountain ahead of them, cutting off their path. They turned back, only to be trapped by another avalanche behind them. The storm howled, visibility dropped to zero, and fear crept in. With nowhere to go, they turned to their ridiculous mobile phone and called for help. It was the first emergency call ever made from such a remote Icelandic region. Hours later, rescue teams arrived, saving them from certain death. That day, Gunnar learned that foresight is the mark of true wisdom. Innovation is often mocked before it's celebrated. Chapter 5. The Avalanche Within. Lessons from Survival. Surviving that near-death experience changed Gunnar forever. He realized that avalanches don't only happen in nature, they happen in our minds. Fear, doubt, and failure can bury us if we let them. But there's always a way out if we stay calm and act. The world laughed at their mobile phone, idea until that same phone saved their lives. It was a reminder that leadership means seeing what others can't. When panic struck, someone had to think clearly, and that someone was Gunnar. In that freezing darkness, he learned that leadership isn't about shouting orders. It's about maintaining calm when everyone else is losing control. That principle later guided him through economic crises, business losses, and personal hardships. During Iceland's 2008 financial collapse, he asked himself the same question he asked in the mountains. What's the mobile phone in this situation? What tool, skill, or relationship can save me now? The answer always led to innovation. Chapter 6. The Mindset Map. Finding direction in the middle of nowhere. At 17, after early failures, Gunnar felt lost, trapped in what he called the middle of nowhere. He realized that success begins with orientation. You must know where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. This became his famous mindset map. He broke it into 3 steps. Attitude. Start with belief. Knowledge. Learn the landscape. Action. Move forward decisively. Applying this philosophy, Gunnar built his career one step at a time. He turned failure into fuel, invested in self-education, and learned to navigate uncertainty. His journey from a lost boy to Iceland's most respected salesman wasn't luck, it was mapping. Chapter 7. The Power of Words, Speaking Life into Existence. Gunnar Andri often said that words are the most powerful tools a human being possesses. They can build empires or destroy dreams. Early in his career, he realized that the way you speak to yourself determines how far you'll go. Self-talk, he believed, is like programming your own destiny. If you repeat defeat, you invite failure. If you affirm strength, you manifest courage. His understanding of this power began when he attended one of his first major motivational events. He noticed how a speaker could transform the energy of an entire room just by choosing the right words. People who entered the hall feeling hopeless walked out believing they could conquer the world. That was the day Gunnar decided he wanted to master communication, not just for business, but for life. He began practicing positive affirmations daily. Instead of saying, "I can't," he replaced it with "I will." Over time, his confidence and presence grew stronger. When he spoke, people listened. But he also discovered that words must match action. Motivation without motion is a fantasy. The real magic happens when belief fuels effort. Gunnar started applying this principle to sales. When he approached clients, he used words that built connection, not pressure. Instead of selling products, he sold emotions, trust, curiosity, and hope. That's what made him stand out in a competitive field. His message to his students later was simple but profound. Words are seeds. Plant wisely, water daily, and they will grow into your reality. Chapter 8. The Business of Belief, Selling from the Heart. As Gunnar's career advanced, he came to understand that the essence of great salesmanship isn't manipulation, it's belief. To him, sales was a sacred art of service. You're not convincing people to buy. You're helping them make a decision that improves their lives. In his early days as a door-to-door salesman, Gunnar often faced rejection. But he realized that rejection wasn't personal, it was a test of authenticity. If he believed in what he was offering, no could truly defeat him. His approach evolved. He began to sell only what he believed in, from his heart. And that shift changed everything. When you sell with honesty and passion, people feel it. They don't buy the product, they buy your conviction. Gunnar began teaching this principle at his SGA sales school. Don't sell from your mouth. Sell from your heart. The mouth speaks to the mind, but the heart speaks to the soul. He also discovered the 3 emotional triggers that drive every purchase: trust, desire, and belonging. If people trust you, desire what you offer, and feel seen, they'll follow you anywhere. But break trust once, and everything collapses. Through the years, Gunnar trained thousands of professionals. His message resonated beyond sales. It applied to leadership, parenting, and personal growth. Every interaction is a sale of some kind, he'd say. You're either selling your dreams or your excuses. Chapter 9. When the lights go out, the test of resilience. No journey to success is free from hardship. Gunnar learned this during one of the darkest periods of his life, when everything he built seemed to crumble. Business failures, financial loss, and personal stress hit all at once. It felt as if the lights had gone out completely. But instead of succumbing to despair, he leaned into the darkness. He remembered his grandmother's words, "You can't see the stars unless it's dark enough." This became his guiding metaphor. The moments that feel like endings are often beginnings in disguise. He forced himself to keep moving, to keep teaching, reading, and inspiring others even when his own fire burned low. He understood that motivation isn't about feeling good. It's about doing what's needed even when you don't want to. One night, sitting in silence, Gunnar realized that success and suffering share the same birthplace, persistence. He decided to rebuild from scratch, drawing strength from his experiences. The setbacks became the foundation for new lessons and deeper empathy. Years later, he looked back on that time not with regret, but with gratitude. Without the dark, he said, he would never have learned to value light. Chapter 10, Building the Bridge, the birth of the SGA Sales School. Out of his struggles came creation. Gunnar's dream of establishing a formal school for sales professionals finally took shape. The SGA Sales School became Iceland's first institution dedicated to teaching communication, mindset, and personal development. He believed that sales should be taught like art, through stories, exercises, and lived experience. His students came from all walks of life: bankers, entrepreneurs, waiters, even teachers. What united them was a desire to improve not just their careers but their character. Gunnar taught with passion, humor, and honesty. He encouraged vulnerability in learning, reminding everyone that true growth requires courage to look foolish before becoming skilled. In his classes, there was no shame in failure, only feedback. One of his most famous exercises involved standing in front of the class and selling an invisible product. The lesson? If you can sell what doesn't exist, you can sell anything that does. It wasn't about products. It was about belief, storytelling, and confidence. Through SGA, Gunnar transformed thousands of lives. Many of his students went on to become leaders, mentors, and changemakers in their own fields. The school's motto, "We don't just teach sales, we teach life," captured the essence of his philosophy. Chapter 11, The Heartbeat of Iceland, Serving the Nation. As his reputation grew, Gunnar became more than a salesman. He became a voice of inspiration across Iceland. He spoke at conferences, schools, and corporate events, spreading his message of resilience and optimism. To him, Iceland wasn't just home, it was a living classroom of endurance. Its harsh weather and isolated geography mirrored the human spirit's ability to survive and thrive. He often compared Icelandic life to sales itself. "You can't control the storm," he'd say, "but you can adjust your sails." That line became iconic in his speeches. He taught people to stop fighting circumstances and start mastering their responses. Beyond business, he launched community projects and mentorship programs to empower youth. He reminded young Icelanders that greatness has nothing to do with size or location. Even from the middle of nowhere, you can change the world if you believe in your worth. He encouraged national pride and self-belief. "We are a small country," he'd say, "but our hearts are bigger than our mountains." His mission was to help Icelanders see themselves not as isolated, but as innovators, pioneers in thought and action. Chapter 12, The Message from the Middle of Nowhere. Standing in the vast Icelandic wilderness one evening, Gunnar reflected on his journey. From a boy selling newspapers in volcanic ash to a man teaching thousands to conquer their fears. The wind howled, the horizon stretched endlessly, and in that silence, he understood the deeper meaning of his life's work. The middle of nowhere wasn't a place, it was a mindset. It represented every moment of doubt, failure, and uncertainty that people experience. And the message was simple: you are never truly lost unless you stop moving. He realized that every person stands at some point in their own middle of nowhere, unsure of where to go next. But within that uncertainty lies infinite possibility. The middle of nowhere is not the end. It's the birthplace of transformation. For Gunnar, the lesson was clear. Life's greatest teachers are often disguised as hardships. The people who thrive are those who choose growth over grief, action over apathy, and faith over fear. As he looked at the northern lights dancing above, he whispered his final lesson to the world. Don't wait for the perfect conditions to start. Create them. Even from the middle of nowhere, you can send a message that reaches everywhere. Gunnar Andri's journey is more than the story of a salesman. It's the story of a human spirit unbroken by failure, strengthened by adversity, and guided by an unshakable belief in possibility. From a little boy shouting newspaper headlines during a volcanic eruption to a man whose words inspired an entire nation, his life is a living testament to what courage, discipline, and compassion can achieve. Through his experiences, Gunnar showed that success isn't about where you start, but how you grow. It's about embracing fear as a teacher, seeing rejection as redirection, and turning hardship into momentum. He taught us that every person stands, at some point, in their own middle of nowhere, but that place can become the beginning of everything if we choose to act, to believe, and to move forward. His message continues to echo. Greatness doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from imperfect people who decide to keep going anyway. Whether you're standing at the edge of failure or on the threshold of a dream, remember Gunnar's words. Even from the middle of nowhere, you can send a message that reaches the world.